What's up, guys? Our Wrestling Podcast back at you with another episode. This is Dave Vicious, along with Just the Total Package, Craig the British Bulldog, and Gus.
Is that Die? Are you doing Die?
Yeah, bring
Crap.
you our
Oh,
perspective on the
nice.
world
Double or
of professional
nothing.
wrestling.
Craps.
No inside
70-11.
sources, no ties to the industry, just stories
Double
from the
or
diehards, sharing opinions with you. Today's topic, the legacy of the Attitude Era. For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts, or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel. On social media, can you give us a
Only the
follow
red.
on Instagram or Twitter at O.W.P 2019 or on Facebook at Our Wrestling Podcast? And don't forget that classic Daily Motion.
Daily Motion, where we celebrate
censored.
dice rolling.
Yeah.
The dice is rolling. Yeah.
Snake eyes, brother.
So why are we talking about the legacy of the Attitude Era, Craig?
I don't know, Dave. There's a lot of talk about this. There's a lot of talk about this. And the thing is about the Attitude Era is I mean, we'll talk about it towards the end, but we'll all give our opinions on it.
Yeah.
It had to happen, but I also feel like when you look back on it, it wasn't great in that sense. As far as quality, we had the Ruthless Aggression era right after that, and that was all good shit. And even some stuff in the New Generation era, with the ladder match from Ramon and Michaels and all those feuds, there's a lot of bright spots. The Attitude Era is this thing in time that I think a lot of people romanticize, but when you really go back and look at some of it, you're like, this was shit. A lot of this was shit. However, the right characters hit at the right time. The culture of America, not just the wrestling fans, but the culture of America was changing. And in the mainstream, we'll talk about the popular shows, talk shows, cartoons that were popular in the mainstream here in the late 90s. Helped shape what America became. And I think the Attitude Era was hard to shake it afterwards. Legitly, when you got to the Ruthless Aggression era, it was very hard for Vince to lay off the Attitude Era. Can we try some smut today? No, let's not. We're not doing that. We're PG now, Vince. Are you sure?
No.
Are we doing it fair? No, let's not do it fair. We're
It's
out
so
of that.
weird.
We're done with
It
that.
is-
That
part's a weird time.
I think it's been romanticized so much. It's not as good as we remember it, but it had to happen, and it took a long time to shake the stigma of it. It really did.
What I
nostalgic
always
level,
said about this time was
Right.
Top tier.
Yeah.
It's top tier.
What
For
I
nostalgia,
always-
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
But everything was better.
Well, what I always said, and I think even Meltzer and those they tried to go back and watch these Raws, and they're like, this is so bad, except for what's on top. We dealt with a lot of bullshit to see what Austin was going to do, to see what Rock was going to do in these time frames, and just you forget about there was a ton of shit underneath that you're like, oh wow, this is bad.
It wasn't
This
a
is
huge
bad.
roster. It really wasn't a huge. They still kind of kept the production kind of down. It certainly.
They
Were
shoestringed
literally
it,
in
Craig,
the
for sure.
WWF, they were coming up off their ass. They were being
Oh, yeah.
beaten bad by WCW, so they were picking themselves up and just going let's just do whatever we could do,
Took a
So
long
for the
time
first
to
year,
scale up. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's-
I mean,
it-
just when
a
I
great
think of
time.
the Attitude Era, you just think of a stadium full of signs where
Oh, yeah.
everyone brought a sign, and
It
that
was
Valley
alive.
Who shot.
It was alive.
Austin 316.
It was
It was in the moment.
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cuz is right. The
Absolutely.
vibe of the nostalgia was something that we'll never see again.
No,
It was this
it's
energy
alive.
that was and the competition between both promotions was this electricity every Monday. It was this electricity
And-
that I'll never forget. I will never forget the moments.
Remember,
it's
you
crazy.
had on the bottom, you had ECW still fucking lighting a fire too.
Right. Yeah.
It was rabid.
Kind of pushing the narrative of what's
Mhm.
acceptable and what's not. And yeah, for sure.
Kids, we didn't have two TVs, okay? So we had to fight to see whether we wanted to watch Nitro or Raw at that time. So and Jess
I
had the
recorded
remote,
one and then watched
so-
the other one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Flipped.
So while we were watching
Flipping channels.
live,
Yeah. Well,
It was the best.
but
of
that's the get off our lawn moment of the podcast. Let's move on.
Nah.
The Attitude Era was a period
right.
in which the
What are you
World
thinking?
Wrestling Federation, WWF now WWE, used the term WWF Attitude to describe its programming from November 9th, 1997 to May 6th of 2002. It began during the Monday Night Wars, a period in which WWF's Monday Night Raw, later Raw is War, went head-to-head with WCW's Monday Nitro in a battle for Nielsen ratings each week from September 4th of 95 all the way to March 26th of 2001. WWF's programming from this area featured adult-oriented content which included increased depicted violence, profanity, and sexual content. This was like, we're gonna go Jerry Springer, is what we would hear a lot
Right,
of
yeah.
times. And
You're
this is
tired
gonna
of it.
get wild. And they're like, okay. And it was amazing how much what was available. I don't want to say available, was allowed in this time frame, which I'm sure we'll get into in more detail. But we're talking about there were certain things that could record here and play here that couldn't play in other places. I mean, this is nuts, right? Right, Jess? What do you
Well,
think?
at the end of 97, like, a lot of things changed in television, like South Park being one of them, is people don't I think they sleep on South Park in the sense that it was just a cable channel. They were on Comedy Central. But in late 97 when South Park debuted, it changed the way that you could view television and what was allowed. And even though it was cable, it didn't matter. Like, you could always kind of curse on cable. People just never did it. And then all of a sudden, when South Park comes along, they're like, "You can do that?" They're like, "Yeah, you can do fucking anything like on it." And then the
Yeah.
advertisers at first were like, "This is terrible." What are their ratings? How many people watch?
Mhm.
We'll buy a share. We'll buy some time. And that's what Vince jumped right on that. So Bischoff always said, like, when I finally got Hall and Nash and we decided to do the NWO storyline and we had the cruiserweight division, we wanted to attack the 18 and over demographic because Vince was always about kids and families. So he's like, we're not going to try to compete with him like everybody else did before. We're going to do the college students that in their 20s and early 30s, and we're going to do more reality-based television. So the NWO was very risque. They didn't push the envelope as far as language or anything really. They were just very like real. It was all real. Their real names. It was black and white. It was just different. So that he captivated the college crowds. Then South Park comes along in late 97 and just changes the way everybody views television. Jerry Springer got really big in the late 90s. And so Vince was like, well, wait a minute. Like, if they're beating us bad with like appealing to the 18 plus crowd, so are we, but we're going to be more smutty. We're going to be Jerry Springery. We're going to be crash television. And that's where Russo kind of came in at the time too. He got in Vince's ear. Dude, you're going to listen to these guys like Jim Cornette and Patterson and all them that just, they want to do shit from the 70s and 80s. Nobody wants that. Look at this other channel. Look at Nitro. They're fucking killing it. It's like, it's this reality based, look at their set. It's metal, WCW and big metal letters across the stage, like fire and like the lights
now,
and everything
bro.
was so,
It's now.
it's fresh and new, bro. And so
Yes.
he was, and again, when he's not governed, Russo's terrible. So I'm not an advocate for Russo at all.
Yeah,
But
of
he was
course.
the guy that just started talking to Vince, going like, dude, dump this old shit. We got to try something new. We're getting the shit beat out of us. What do we have to lose? We're already getting the crap beat out of us every Monday. So Vince was finally like, okay. That's when Vince did quite frankly, we feel you're tired of having your intelligence. So, and that whole thing, when that happened, it changed everything here. So it was really a derivative of WCW. Bischoff, of course, will pat himself on the back all day and be like, it was because we turned the heat up on the 18 plus crowd.
We borrow from such program niches like soap operas, like The Days of Our Lives, or music videos such as those on MTV, daytime talk shows like Jerry Springer and others, cartoons like The King of the Hill on Fox, sitcoms like Seinfeld, and other widely accepted forms of television entertainment. We in the WWF think that you, the audience, are quite frankly tired of having your intelligence insulted. We also think that you're tired of the same old simplistic theory of good guys versus bad guys.
And that's when Vince is like, well, we're going to go further than you. We're going to go more than real. We're going to go smutty. We're going to go soap opera. We're going to go Jerry Springer and South Park. I mean, even fucking Road Dogg and Golga would wear Cartman shirts, you know what I mean, coming out here. So it was just such a different era. Like, it was so crazy. It was so crazy.
John Tenta, baby. John Tenta was a
John
big part.
Tenta.
He's the godfather of the Attitude
It
Era.
really ruined shit for a long time. Like, it really did.
The Attitude Era marked the rise of many WWF wrestlers, including Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Triple H, Kane, Mick Foley, and various personas, Kurt Angle, DX, and
Val
The
Venis.
Undertaker, who was already a veteran but continued to gain popularity there. 1 week after the Montreal Screwjob, go back into our archives if you want to hear about that. We've talked about that over and over. McMahon gave an interview with Jim Ross in which McMahon explained his actions and infamously claimed that Bret Hart screwed Bret Hart. Bret screwed Bret, is what I'd say.
Brett.
That's right. The WWF successfully went on to parlay fan resentment towards McMahon, whose position is
With the
owner of
black eye.
WWF rarely acknowledged on
Rat.
screen prior to the Montreal Screwjob into creating the Mr. McMahon character, a villainous, overbearing boss. McMahon's new heel character would become a major part of WWF's transition to reality-based storylines, particularly in his rivalry with Stone Cold Steve Austin. This changed everything. Absolutely everything.
Yeah, they you could read on the next couple ones here too, because I have a lot to say about like Austin's promos and stuff. And really, like, I think Austin
What
kind of
the-
indirectly gave Vince the confidence, like, to do a lot of this
Oh,
shit.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, because Austin's like, let's go, do whatever. I'm thinking about hitting your head with that pan, you know?
Well, what are you thinking about over there, Austin? I'm trying to think.
Well,
if I
in
should hit you with the bedpan or
the
not.
King of the Ring tournament,
Of course
like,
you should.
I know it was in '96, but really, like, Joe and I talk about this often because Joe was over at my house in King of the Ring '96, and we loved Austin from WCW, so we were just glad he was
Sure.
finally getting a push.
Hey, bro.
So
Hollywood
the
Blondes, all
promo
day.
was great. The promo was awesome because Austin's a great professional wrestler and he's a great promo. So that wasn't the thing that Joe and I remembered the most was the word ass. And like Vince had never let that stuff come across on his airwaves ever. And so even though yes, this was pay-per-view, but the fact that he was kind of bashing Roberts and about his beliefs and about his alcoholism was a little whoa
Yeah.
shit. Like we knew that Vince was allowing different stuff to happen. But then when he said Austin 316 said I whipped your ass, Joe and I looked at each other and were like,
Hey,
I've never heard like he talks
Jess.
like a regular guy. He talks like a
Mhm.
normal guy. And that
Yeah.
happened in 96. So they still
I just
we were-
whipped your ass.
they
It was
stuffed
there, but
Austin
can we-
down a
can
little
we
bit because
give,
Vince was scared.
Don't just get him out of the ring, get him out of the WWF. Because I've proved, son, without a shadow of a doubt, you ain't got what it takes anymore. You sit there and you thump your Bible and you say your prayers, and it didn't get you anywhere. Talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says, I just whipped your ass. Come on, that's not necessary.
Can we give Cuz a chance to give
No,
us that
no,
Austin
no,
version?
no.
Oh,
All right.
oh,
Never
cuz
mind.
don't be
More
I'll
in
give the
line
fans
with
what they
that.
want. That's whatever.
I'm more in line with RVD right now. Sorry. You know
Oh,
what I mean,
you
dog?
in more
sit
ways than
there
one.
and thump your Bible. You say
Yeah.
your prayers. It didn't
Yeah,
get
Austin
you
was,
anywhere.
Austin was it was so different. And then they kind of struggled with Austin for a bit. And then in 97, when finally again the backstage people,
Mhm.
Russo, started getting in his ear going, dude, let this guy go. When you really think about Austin was not really risky. He was just real. Like he was just a guy that would say, I'm gonna whip your ass. That's how we would talk in casual conversation in real life. We wouldn't say, I'm gonna kick your butt.
Sure.
You know, it was never like that. But WWF programming was like that. And then when Austin said,
Well-
I'll whip your ass, we were like, holy shit, like this is so people could talk like this now is what we're doing.
About you.
Like,
And all of a
I don't know about you,
sudden,
Jess,
Bret
but I
Hart
thought-
wanted to cuss, take it up a notch.
yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I
This is
thought
bullshit.
the remaster was really gonna take off. I was confident.
The ringmaster was cut short, in my opinion.
It,
So, yeah, it's
could've,
like-
but
And
Again,
the Vince and Austin feud was very soap opera. Vince was like this villain, this soap opera villain, and
He's
like
great at
so it
by the way.
became. I know they say reality based, but it was all storyline driven. You just wanted to get this fucking guy. Like you wanted Austin to get him, and then they had this whole year where he would drive in a
Which is
cement truck
realistic.
or a beer truck, or he would dress up as a cameraman and then throw his fucking hat off and beat the shit out of Vince, or
Ah.
show up in the hospital as a doctor and beat the shit out of Vince, and it was fantastic. And that's
Open
that's
wide.
the difference that NWO was more of like we're kind of gang, and we're coming in and we're just gonna be you don't know what we're doing and we're crazy. And then like but Austin and Vince was like a classic like I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna get my boss, I'm gonna fucking get you. You might own this company and you might have all these bodyguards around you, but I'm gonna get you. And Austin would just dress up. Like there was the one that I found out when fucking they had a cage match and then Vince kicked everybody out of the cage except for the cameraman. And then of course, when you see the back of the cameraman, you're like, God damn it, that's Austin. He has a stupid wig on. And he turned around and he threw the camera down. And he looked at Vince and he took the wig off and the place went nuts. And he starts beating the shit out of him. And then all the corporation has to climb in. Like every week, it was like, how's Austin going to infiltrate? Vince at the beginning would be like, okay. He will not get to me. And it was beautiful. It was so telegraphed and so perfect. And then but then the other stuff that we'll talk about was like the shit they were throwing against the wall. Mae Young giving birth to a hand. Choppy pee pee. You know, they were trying anything they needed to do. The Godfather, Val Venus, like all of this stuff was like
Fun
just
stuff.
it was fun at the time. Like Cuz said earlier, it was the energy. But you look back and you're like, God, like how obvious was that? They were so smutty
But
on
another
purpose, and
another part that's kind of even though it wasn't the best in the limelight at the time, just but it broke open to where we are today, and the amazing female talent that we see today is that after a 3-year plus hiatus, the women's championship was revamped in this time frame too, in
yes,
'98, and it had Sable and Sunny, kind of
Yeah.
like being that those big symbols.
I mean,
and then
you had to be
you
hot.
had China, Lita, Trish.
It wasn't
Of
pure
course.
women's wrestling, but at least they did bring it back
Sure.
and elevate it. And,
But there was a period where it was wide open. It's like any ideas you got, let's go, and getting women back into the ring, which Vince was not a fan of. I think at that moment, it's like it just doesn't work. People
who can
don't like
forget
it.
Miss Jackie and fucking Sable Royal Rumble 2000 bikini off? Like, I
But-
mean, like
and,
honestly,
like, Sunny was like the most downloaded woman in America, according like in
in
Yeah.
96
whatever
and
year it was,
97, yeah,
like,
yeah.
And that was as more of a valet even before she even got into the ring,
and
right? So
Sable, yeah. I mean, as
Yeah,
a nod to
Sable
Jess's
too.
point of like going attaching the audience more than kids, like the most organic thing was the 316 signs you saw after King of the Ring, which like led
Sure.
to that. But then it was like there's nothing more than getting away and knowing that you're not targeting children from
Right.
Doing years plus worth of angle where you're against your boss. When everyone we knew was in shitty jobs, and everyone wanted to tell their boss to fuck off, and everyone wanted to get that revenge, and it's what connected and resonated with
yeah,
everything then. So that's what they kind of ran with. So it wasn't just like superhero Hogan. It was basically like a relation of a real working man getting
Yeah.
a one up on the dude that's paying your salary. So
And that was the
All
hub. And then,
day.
like I said, below it was all the low hanging fruit, like the
Yeah.
birth to a hand, all this other stuff, the choppy pee pee.
Yeah, there's some-
she was
Yeah.
6.
just trying to get some
It was
laughs. Like
right.
Yep. And don't forget, WWE also signed a number of wrestlers who left WCW during the period. We talked about Waltman in earlier episodes. He was one of the first, but don't forget that Jericho came over. That was a huge segment when
In
he came over.
'99, that was
Yeah.
WCW wasn't quite dead yet; it was on the decline. But like Jericho was like the other big guy that popped over. He was
Yeah.
red hot on Nitro, and Bischoff just fucking let him go.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are we
And
doing
then-
here?
and
Jericho's
then-
amazing.
Xbox
and
to
then
Jericho.
the Giant left, known as Big Show later, and the
Yep.
Radicals also moved over. It was a lot of people.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
definitely just fleeing the coop, so to speak. So
Some heavy hitters.
don't forget like the Hardy Boys, Dudley Boys, Edge and Christian were featured
Oh.
in some major matches.
oh my
here.
god.
Brought tag wrestling back. They
Some
brought
of the-
tag
yep.
wrestling back.
Oh,
The New
yeah.
Age Outlaws.
Trendsetters.
Yeah.
huh?
Just phenomenal
Yeah, New Age
stuff.
Outlaws.
I may require a little assistance. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, D-Generation X proudly brings to you its WWF Tag Team Champions of the Road Dogg, Jesse James, the Badass Billy Gunn, the new
Yeah, D-Generation X, Nation of Domination, so many factions, the Corporation, Ministry of Darkness, Corporate Ministry, and the
I actually like
Brood.
Corporate Ministry.
There was so many factions where like Vince like just do factions.
Let's
Fuck.
do it.
Like,
Let's do it.
Everyone's
like,
in a faction. The whole promotion.
NWO was super popular. Let's do it.
Yeah.
But NWO is like taking over.
ministry is
Factions
the
are
next
like, hey,
NWO.
let's team up and try to take out the other faction, right? It's like I feel like factions are more Survivor-esque. Or like, would you like to form an alliance? Yes, I would. Oh, thank you. And that's what factions are. It's
I
not,
love
NWO
factions. I'm a big
is
fan.
different. Like
Yeah.
factions never take over an entire network, right? Factions do what they're supposed to do, it keeps Roman going. It makes Evolution, fantastic.
Unless the network
God.
takes over you, like in ECW, when Cyrus was the representative of the network on TNN.
There you go.
Come on, that's part of the
Cyrus.
anti-era. ECW.
Oh my God, Jess, I can't believe I'm going to read this right now. The Hardcore Championship was established on November 2nd of 98. And this chaotic division involved no disqualification, falls count anywhere matches that would
Goldberg
start
should've
and then
won
would be
that
taken
title, right?
outside the
I
ring.
think Goldberg won a couple
Yeah.
hardcore titles.
Blood was
Cuz-
involved.
To your point.
No. Whoa. I heard people got pinned in their sleep.
My favorite thing about that was
One,
this was during the infancy of the internet, and people were convinced that it was the belt that Mr. Perfect smashed when he feuded with Hogan in 1990. That remember on that Saturday Night's Main Event when Perfect stole Hogan's belt and smashed it with the hammer?
And started
Everyone
smashing
was
it up.
convinced that this is the belt. They just put tape over it and changed it.
It
And I was
wasn't.
like, it wasn't, but it was kind of cool. So like people were like,
that's
that's
lore
the,
story.
yeah, that's the
little
belt
story.
that Hennig smashed. That it has to be. It has to be.
Man.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
I may require a little assistance. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, D-Generation X proudly brings to you its WWF Tag Team Champions of the Road Dogg Jesse James, the Badass Billy Gunn, the new. Wow.
And this era drew to a close on May 6th of 2002, and WWE changed its name to WWE and ceased the Attitude Era branding. That's
Ruthless
when
aggression.
that's when Ruthless Aggression
So
came
my
in,
big
and John
thing about
Cena
it is I want all of us to
started his
talk
reign.
about like what we feel the legacy. Obviously, it had to happen. The Attitude Era. It had to for WWE to pull. You know, we always joke and
Well-
talk about what if Vince never decided to go to the adults, if he just was hell bent on kids. It's always going to
I
be
get
kids.
it.
Like
You know
and,
what's-
and Vince
you know
went
what's-
back.
you know what's-
Vince went out of business. Like what would have happened? WCW would have folded anyway. The right guy
I think
had
that's
to
true.
do this. You know,
Vince,
but like
Vince
it's
finished
just
the
it's weird.
story.
Yeah.
He
He
did.
was he talked about it. He was
What,
moving
cuz?
gate to
What did
gate
cuz say?
every week.
Vince
Vince finished the story.
you know?
It was gate to gate for years. And at the end of this whole thing, the one thing that really sticks out to me is the fact that I didn't remember just until you brought it up here in the notes that for 3 years there was no WWF Women's Champion. They just fucking scrapped it. They just bye. You know,
Medusa left and dropped it in the trash in
and dropped it in the
95.
trash. And Vince like said, "I'll just leave it in the trash then. I'm not gonna like make a big deal out of
Yeah.
it. I'm not gonna."
I am Medusa, always have been Medusa, and always will be Medusa. This is the WWE Women's Championship belt.
Whoa! Wait a minute, what? Look. That indeed it is. Trash can.
And that's what I think of the WWE Women's Championship belt. This is the WCW. I am now in the WCW.
But as like they were trying to appeal to sex appeal, right? And trying to appeal to this demographic of men that wanted to see pretty women, which is, it sounds like a black eye in the industry, and it kind of is. At the same time, it's necessary to bring forth the amazing women's wrestling that we see today, not just in WWE, but all over the world. It wouldn't have happened without this moment. And it's kind of a shitty thing, but it is also a phoenix rising from the ashes of this bullshit. And kudos to the ladies, man. I from coming from that and being able to be like legitimately known, I can main event WrestleMania, and it's happened. It wouldn't have happened without this moment, but it is a bit of a stain on how it starts. You know,
I think it
I'm not
belongs
sure
in
how
the
to
time
react to
capsule that it's in. I think when you go back and watch it, Russo's
Sure.
theory was like just crash TV. If you go back and watch a lot of pay-per-views in 99, they were
Crash,
hard to
bro.
watch. A lot of the matches were 2 minutes long, 30
Yeah.
seconds long. It was
Yeah,
just to advance
squashes
storylines.
everywhere.
The main events were, you know, if Taker took on Austin, they would wrestle for 20 minutes, whatever, and they were good. But I mean, like it just it was such a
A
different
lot of shit
formula
underneath,
and
bro.
so different. Even afterwards, you know, we look back affectionately now. Who knew that the Ruthless Aggression era was going to be like the best wrestling, the best
It is.
storylines,
Still
like,
the
you know,
best
for a
era.
long time. But like, I feel it took them a while to shake the stigma of the Attitude Era because Vince would always try,
kinda weird.
right? That yeah, he would always try. He would always go, you know, Schnitzky kicking the baby. I didn't. It's not my fault. You know, they would always try these weird. Katie Vick. They were always trying this bullshit.
It's weird
because
that
they
he
thought
let-
they can harken back to the Attitude Era and pull it back, but it belonged here, and it belonged. It should have
Yeah.
stopped when it did, and then they moved on forward. And like Dave said, so many other great things came out of the Attitude Era that were able to blossom afterwards. But this is so many people talk about this time period, the Attitude Era, you know, and
Yeah, I
it
love
was majorly influenced by WCW, and a lot of people don't give WCW credit for lighting that fire and getting that Vince and staff to be like, dude, we got
They were backed.
we
They
gotta
were
do
backed
something,
into a corner, man.
you know.
WCW didn't finish the
Yeah.
story either. That's why they.
Nobody
That's
finished
right.
the story except for Vince.
No, the only
But
ones that
Cuz made a
finished the
good
story
point.
are-
Cuz you made a good point earlier, cuz ECW, they were ripping ECW off for
I'm
like
telling
4
you.
years. Like, dude, they were from like 94, 95, they were stealing. Vince had
Oh yeah.
in 95 he had ECW on his television. They took over
Yeah.
Raw in 97, right? Like,
Yep.
so like they, you know, and he helped them out with pay-per-views and stuff, and like, so there was ECW actually was a really big part of it. I mean, you look at WCW 99, they had Sandman, they had all these other people that they just yanked. Vince was taking Taz and the Dudley Boys and all this stuff. Like, everybody was pulling from ECW. ECW has a big voice like in this too that people don't talk about.
And let's not pretend this was like fringe either. This was completely mainstream. So I remember going out and buying all 4 TV guide covers with Rock and Austin in
Entertainment
the main
Weeklies, right?
Yes. So it had broken the times when wrestling is at their apex and its best is when it breaks through the mainstream, right? So we're kind of still waiting for that a little bit, or maybe that'll never kind of happen again because it kind of is mainstream.
I mean, they kind of already do because they already go on a lot of the talk shows and you know, they do actually. It's kind of like,
I mean,
whatever now.
Rock's career,
like, you know?
Cena's career, like it is. It's like it's a natural.
It's kind of like a normal
transition.
thing now. Yeah, it's kind of weird.
But back then, it was like, despite all this kind of smut and
was a
despite
big
kind
deal.
of the Parents Television Council kind of like shut them down, it was just kind of a different time. Like NYPD Blue said that for the first time, they said shit, and cable, you could do whatever you wanted after 9 p.m. with different rules than network. So it's like
everything was better back then. Movies, shows, video games, wrestling, cartoons, everything was better. Come on,
it was a lot of fun.
It all went hand in hand.
It was.
They all helped each other.
But I think it went over the end. And when Craig says when it went mainstream, that's when it gets dangerous because it's not special anymore.
Yeah.
It's common.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
And then,
exactly.
Yeah. And then really with the Janet Jackson nip slip, the world changed.
I was just
like,
saying,
after that.
it sounds like you're talking about Green Day fans when everybody started liking Green Day. They're like, I don't like Green Day anymore.
Right, because
it's
they're
like
mainstream.
now
It's true.
They went mainstream.
So WWE is mainstream now because it's like it's natural just to see it in the news or on a talk show. You're kind of just like whatever about it now. You're like, oh, that's cool. It's not a big deal anymore when they're on the mainstream.
Yeah.
It's like, of course they were on that morning
because the number one actor in the world is fucking was a former wrestler, and Austin's name recognition and Cena's trying. They all have like that. Batista, Cena, like they're all just trying to follow it. It's like it's part of the zeitgeist.
You know, people finally got their head out of their ass about wrestlers. Like, oh fuck, they're stuntmen and they're actors and actresses. Like, oh shit, like we do this all the time in Hollywood. It's just so funny. There was this stank on wrestling, and then when they realized like they do everything you do but live, and they're like, oh fuck, they do. Like, wow. Like Jericho took acting lessons because he wanted to be better. So when he came back as a heel, the suit wearing Jericho, he went to Hollywood and took acting lessons to take pauses when he should and like everything. He's like, we were born to do this. This is what we do. And like it's so finally Hollywood now is accepting like wrestling, going like, oh, you guys were just doing it, but kind of better. Like all these years.
Thanks, James. Thanks, James Gunn, for that. Thank you.
But like, I mean, talking about work rate and the quality of matches back then, I mean, Jess is right. Like there was so much filler and fluff that was garbage, and they had 2 kind of co-mains and and that was about it, other than like a highlight of a hardcore match, like a Hardy Boys or a tag match.
Kept this engaged on top, and then you had a bunch.
You do get the little gems, like Triple H and Rock ladder match at SummerSlam '98. You find these little gems through '98. We talked about Jeff Jarrett and 1-2-3 Kid and the hair match and everything. There was a lot of
TLC stuff, the TLC era. My God!
Oh my God! Yeah. Well, because you still had Patterson back there, you still had Pritchard, like you still had people that remembered the old days. They're like, you got to tell a story in the ring. So while you had Russo kind of just like, we'll do a skit where we chop his dick off and all that stuff, but then there was other people on the other side going, that's fine, but like Austin could wrestle, so let's let Austin go 20 minutes, like and have a good main event or whatever, So I wish Brett would have lasted longer in WWE because if Brett was in there in '98, god damn,
this
like
is bullshit.
I told you he didn't get to finish the story.
He didn't finish his story. No. Like WrestleMania 14, it wasn't
Nobody
Shawn,
gets
it was
to finish
Brett
the
versus
story,
Austin.
right, guys?
Yeah.
Only certain people do. Vince got to finish his story. Hogan, when he beat Andre, that was him finishing his story. Stone Cold winning the title, that's him finishing his story. WCW didn't get to finish the story. Brett didn't get to finish the story.
Well, I think WCW refused to finish the story. That's why they.
You're right. Actually,
yeah.
Was there ever
NWO should have come to an end?
Yeah, it should have been with Sting. Sting should have been.
Yep.
Sting should have finished the story.
We all know that.
I'm just saying.
This should be a next topic that we do is like today's topic, finishing the story. It's so true.
If you think about
Because
it.
wrestling is all stories. All of it is stories. And if you don't finish it, that's when it shits the bed. But if you finish it, it's like, okay, like we saw.
Or-
the
And that's when
beginning,
it's
what
good.
the
It's
end.
just
Well,
means
I mean, think about it. Did Ultimate Warrior finish his story? No, his title run was a flop. So was it?
That was his fault.
Well,
But
it
he didn't
was,
finish
but
the
like he
story.
never got a chance to. Yeah, he never got a chance to finish the story.
but
Whether it's
Were you
his
gonna
fault or
say-
not.
isn't beating Hogan finishing the story? For a
I mean,
tiny
it
story?
is. But then what
No,
happened
I don't
after?
think so for him.
Hogan got to get the title, and then he got to beat Andre. And then I was like, yeah, that's my pinnacle, brother.
Yeah, he went to his peak. Like Hogan went to the peak of the mountain. Warrior never got it.
Hogan finished several other stories.
Yeah, I
He
know.
finished
And then he
Macho's
got to be
story.
the champion of the NWO,
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah,
And no one
Hogan
actually
interjected
really
in a lot of
actually
stories
beat
that had no
Hammer,
business
brother.
being in. Hogan, he would just
Yeah.
butt in.
Ruined
Too
a
many
lot of
stories, brother.
So wait, but
Yeah,
Flair
there's so
winning the
many things,
Rumble
bro.
finishes his
Gotta
story,
finish
right?
that story,
Or
brother.
no?
Gotta finish that story.
See, Cuz is blowing my mind right now. This is a whole other topic. We just morphed into another topic. I'm like, God damn it,
I
Cuz.
don't like the story can be never ending, or I don't know. Yes, this should definitely be another thing.
Cody's got
Flair's story.
Flair winning the
Craig,
Rumble is
in-
the finishing the
no.
story or not?
And isn't it kind of
Flair-
weird that
no,
Vince actually
no.
allowed wrestling to dominate?
Flair's
the
story.
era?
Flair's story is always in with a loss. Is he?
No, but Flair winning the Rumble in '92 is that not finishing that story?
I
No.
think that's finishing. That's finishing
Flair's
Flair's
kinda
Crockett
playing-
story. I think.
Flair kind of goes in and out of reality. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, he does.
I feel that.
Like, how did
Flair's
it even go that
story
long?
ended
Like,
with-
I don't understand.
Flair's story ended with Macho pinning him, and that was the end of that story because that was his heel run ending up.
Okay, we should put a pin in this because
We should.
there's a
Put
big
a pin in
discussion
that.
of how long constitutes the story or
You know,
angle or
because
There you
whatever.
go.
We can-
there's
We'll
a
talk about it.
there's like a 15
Thanks.
minute
Yeah, any
span.
Thanks, Cuz,
last
for derailing
any
this
last
fucking
words
thing.
anybody wants to say
Well-
about the Attitude Era? Anybody
No, I
wants to
don't.
rub it?
It was the best times.
No.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. I mean, that's
It-
So
No.
it's so true. Cuz is Mr. Cliche tonight, but he's actually right on everything.
He's
Like,
just
his
fucking
story.
spouting like,
It's the
hey,
best time of the time. It's the
Mhm.
most
And
poignant Cuz
it's
ever
the
been.
best times and worst times, and we're going through hard times, brother.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
For
It was.
audio,
so Cody's
It's
got
probably it is the most famous and talked about era in wrestling history for all of its good, all of its bad, or whatever. But like, it did need to end, and we got really good stuff after it. Like Dave said before, with the women's division, the ruthless aggression is something that we won't forget because WCW was done, and they had all this talent, and they finally figured it out after they dropped the stupid invasion angle. They really had some pretty cool like
Yeah.
storylines and matches and all that. But Attitude Era belongs, I think, in a time capsule. I really do. Like,
being
I don't know if
being
you
a
could ever do
fan
it
of the
again.
Attitude Era, before the Attitude Era, when you were kind of like we were almost like a top tier of fans that like the mainstream fans like that would come in like during the Attitude Era and you would talk to them, but you were still like a cut above because you were watching wrestling way before
Yeah,
the
because
Attitude
we watched
Era.
it during the shit period. You know,
I
we
loved
remember, yeah.
being like a fan, a longtime fan, even during the Attitude Era, where it's like, welcome to
Oh,
the
man.
fold, but there's a lot you got to learn. Okay, you know your
Yeah, there's a
history,
lot that
you can't
happened here.
just-
Yeah,
Okay, let me see your ticket. Like, okay, you're
that's
okay.
true. So true. Like wrestling fans are super protective, especially like
Yeah.
we watched Mabel and Diesel in '95. So you hold your
Yes.
fucking horses.
If
You
you
can't
haven't
just
lived
walk
through
in the
that,
train.
you don't
like,
get
yeah.
to fucking cheer milk truck.
Yeah, you don't
okay?
get to just walk in here. Like,
And
yeah, it's
buy
so
a
true.
316 T-shirt and call yourself a fan. Okay, pal.
That's why I love wrestling.
Yeah.
That's why I love Dave's T-shirt.
Oh my God,
good one.
Batista and Batista are the same person.
Yeah, we had to live through fucking Undertaker versus Undertaker. Okay.
Oh God,
Chains versus Undertaker. That's what that was.
make it stop,
Change them to DOA.
Dave. Make it stop, Dave.
Gobbledygook.
That's how we
please.
end it.
Okay, we had to live through gobbledygook.
I've been trying
Let
to make
Dave make it
it stop.
stop.
For 20 minutes.
What about
Let
Los
Dave make it
Ricas, all right?
Oh my God.
And
I'm about ready to
Alto.
Irish goodbye this son of a bitch. I swear to God.
in Alto.
For audio fans, give us a listen on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google Podcast, or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel. On social media, give us a follow on Instagram or Twitter at O.W.P 2019 or at Facebook at Our Wrestling Podcast. And don't forget that daily motion for Cuz, Craig, Jess, and Dave. This is the
Los
O.W.P signing
Ricas.
off. Have a good one.